Hi guys, yasas, que kalos to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making a moist and delicious lemon roll cake. Some people like to call it a lemon roulade. I like to call it delicious. It's going to be sweet, zesty from the lemons, and so moist and so flavorful. It's going to have lemon curd in it, pastry cream, and topped with whipped cream. Can't get more delicious than this. This is a nice twist on a holiday dessert if you don't want to serve something that's pumpkin flavored or with warm cinnamon notes. If you want something bright and delicious to kind of surprise your guests, make this. Very easy to make. Like I said before, let's get started. So I have a saucepan over here that I filled up a third of the way up with water, and I want it to get really steaming hot, so I have the heat over medium high. I'm going to get the lemon curd started. So we're making lemon curd first because that's what's going to give it really beautiful lemon flavor. I like to make my own because I haven't had one that's really good, one that I really like that's not eggy tasting or that's not too tart or too sweet. I like mine tart and sweet. So we're going to start off with 6 eggs. This makes a big batch of lemon curd, much more than you're going to need for this recipe. But the best thing about lemon curd is you can just use whatever you need and freeze the rest. It stays fresh in the freezer for months, and you can make so many different desserts with it. You can flavor butters with it to like put on a breakfast bar, breakfast spread if you're hosting a breakfast. You can serve it alongside scones. You could, again, like I said, flavor buttercreams or make cakes. Anyway, I have 6 eggs, like I said, in here. To that, I'm going to add 1.5 cups or 340 grams of sugar. And if you're wondering why I have 2 different shades of sugar, that's because one is organic and one is plain. I'm literally out of sugar. So I'm going to set this aside for a minute while I zest lemons. You're going to need lots of lemons for this, 4 to be exact. So these are 4 medium-sized lemons. I'm going to use the zest of all of them because that's where most of the lemon flavor is. And I'm going to zest it on the sheet that's going to go on my baking pan that the cake is going to bake on. And lemon zest is something that can also be frozen. So if you're doing a big batch of something lemony, zest as many lemons as you can. And you can just gather up all the zest, make a nice thin layer, put it in a freezer bag, and then, you can use it throughout the year and stays fresh and saves a step when it comes to baking, because sometimes this is a little bit time consuming, especially if you need a lot. When you're zesting, make sure you get just the shiny yellow part. The white part is bitter. Okay, 3 million years later, you'll have this much lemon zest. You need about 4 tablespoons worth. So 1 lemon basically is about 1 tablespoon. Now, before I get the juice out of these, I'll mix this a little bit and I'll put it over the heat. So you want to cook these over a water bath because if you were to put these directly into the pan, you'd have scrambled eggs, and we're not going for that. We're going for a smooth, velvety lemon curd, and you can do the same thing with orange if that's what you prefer. If you want to make an orange roll cake instead of a lemon roll cake, how cool would that be? So I'm going to put this over the steaming hot water for now while I get the juice out of these lemons. We only need 1/2 cup of lemon juice for the lemon curd. We don't need all of the lemon that these lemons are going to produce, but we are going to need some lemon juice for the lemon syrup that's also part of this cake. Oh, that pretty much is 1/2 cup of lemon juice, my bad. So over the double boiler that we've created, we've already added the eggs and the sugar. I'm going to add all of the lemon zest in and the juice. And I'm going to cook this, stirring it constantly. You don't want to move away from this. Stir it as often as you can for about 8 to 10 minutes or until it thickens. You're going to see it's going to start to look opaque and it's going to have the consistency of whipped cream. Then you're just going to want to take it off of the heat and you're going to need 4 ounces of butter. 4 ounces is 113 grams. Cut it into little cubes and off of the heat, put the butter in there, whisk it in there until the butter melts. Then put a piece of plastic over it and let it cool completely. At that point, reserve some of it for the cake that you're going to need, or you could freeze the rest, or you could freeze all of it. If you're making this ahead of time, freeze it all in little containers and then use a little bit at a time so that way you always have some lemon curd on hand. Okay, so now that the lemon curd is done, it's time to make the vanilla pastry cream. We're going to have a layer of pastry cream in the cake. So I have 2 cups of whole milk, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, but I'm going to put 1/2 of it in the pan with the milk and the rest I'm going to mix with the eggs. So I'm gonna put the milk over medium heat so it can get steaming hot so that way we can temper the eggs. I'm gonna need 2 yolks and 2 whole eggs. Save the whites for some cookies. 4 tablespoons of cornstarch. It's called corn flour in some parts overseas. And we're gonna need a 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. So I'm just gonna whisk these together. So once the milk and the sugar are steaming hot, you're gonna wanna transfer it into the egg mixture and slowly whisk it in. This is gonna raise the temperature of the eggs slowly so that way they stay nice and smooth and create a nice pudding instead of scrambled eggs. Then transfer it all back into the pot. Mix it all up and cook it over medium heat until it's nice and thick. Okay, so as soon as it thickens, remove it from the heat because it's going to continue to thicken. And then go ahead and whisk in 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. And then I like to pass it through a strainer just to catch any little bits that have hardened, so the custard is nice and smooth. Pass it through a strainer and put it in another bowl. And then once you pass it through, cover it with plastic wrap and set it aside to cool completely. If you're making it the same day that you're going to be putting the cake together, once it comes to room temperature, I would pop it in the freezer for a little bit. And then right before it's time to spread over the cake, I would just pass it through a mixer or whisk it really well. Sometimes it tends to thicken a little too much as it sits. In that case, you can just stir in a couple tablespoons or a 1/4 cup more of heavy whipping cream to lighten it up a little bit. And I just put the plastic wrap on top so that way a skin doesn't form. The pastry cream is done. You could do this step the day before you're putting it all together. I'm gonna clean up and then we're gonna move on to the next step. Next, we're gonna make the sponge cake. So you're gonna need 5 eggs that are at room temperature. Plus 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, that's 165 grams, and a little pinch of salt. And a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. And we're gonna whip these on high speed for about 5 minutes or until they're nice and fluffy and like tripled in volume. And over here I have 3/4 cup of flour with 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then I zested a whole lemon in here and just mixed it all together. And while the mixer is whisking on low speed, I'm just gonna add the flour mixture a little bit at a time. The eggs whipped up to be nice and fluffy, that's gonna help the cake fluff up, but that teaspoon of baking powder is important because it's also gonna help give the cake a little bit more lift. So I have a half sheet baking tray that's lined with the same parchment paper that we zested the lemons are for the lemon curd. And I'm just gonna spray it with some baking spray. You can brush it with some butter or with vegetable oil. And then just go ahead and spread the batter evenly. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to bake for about 13 to 15 minutes or until it's golden and springy in the center. I'm going to show you what it looks like as soon as it comes out. So the cake was ready in 13 minutes. As soon as you take it out of the oven, go ahead and run a knife around the edges and then dust the top with some powdered sugar, also known as confectioner's sugar. Then put a towel on top of it and then another half sheet baking pan on top of the towel and carefully flip the cake around. And then go ahead and peel off the parchment paper. Dust the cake with another layer of confectioner's sugar on the other side. This is going to help keep it from sticking to the towel. And then you're going to roll it up. And while you're going to do all of this while the cake is warm, that's going to help the cake create memory so it can keep its shape. We're making a roll, so you want it to stay in the shape. Then go ahead and set it aside until it cools completely. So while the cake is cooling, go ahead and make the lemon simple syrup. In a small saucepan, add 1 cup of water, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of freshly squeezed lemon juice. Mix it all together, bring it to a boil. Once the sugar is dissolved, set it aside so it can cool. And now it's time to make the whipped cream topping. You can definitely skip the step of the whipped cream and just leave your cake roll plain and just dust it with confectioner sugar. But this does take it to the next level and it's really simple to make. So we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream to a bowl that's been fitted with the whisk attachment. And I'm not going to add any confectioner sugar just yet because I'm going to sweeten this with the lemon curd that's nice and cool. I'll start with 2 tablespoons, but this is a matter of preference. You can just add as much or as little as you want to get it as lemony and as sweet as you like. And the lemon curd is super sweet, so I don't think we're going to need any sugar. And just whip it until it's nice and fluffy and thick. Taste and see if it needs more lemon. It does. So I think that was 2 tablespoons. I'll add 2 more because I like this to be very lemony. And I'm just going to whisk this up until it's combined. So I have a pastry bag that's been fitted with a large tip attachment. And I'm just going to put it in this glass over here. And I'm going to transfer all of the whipped cream into this bag. And now it's time to assemble the cake. I'm going to take out another cutting board that's going to make it easy to transfer onto a serving platter, or you can use the same cutting board as the serving, basically the serving platter. We're going to unroll the cake. It's still slightly warm. And this is optional, but it does make the cake very moist. You can brush some of this lemon syrup on top, or if you don't want to, you can just leave it out. It does add some sweetness as well. Now, the first layer is going to be a thin layer of this lemon curd. So you really only need 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of the whole lemon curd, maybe a little bit more than 1/3 of a cup. And then you can just freeze all of the rest and use it to make more lemon cakes like this, or like I said, use it for other lemon flavored desserts. And over here I have the pastry cream that's chilled. I'm just going to whip it up with a spoon. If it's thicker than this, you can pop it back into the mixer and just whip it up a little bit. But this should be good. I do recommend making a double batch of pastry cream so there could be a little bit more filling in the cake and so that you could have some leftover for snacking. But that looks good. And now we're going to roll it up. So use the towel to help you. Go ahead and carefully roll it onto your serving platter. I like to serve it on this cutting board. I think it looks rustic, it looks pretty. But if you're going to be putting it in the refrigerator, I suggest you put it in a smaller serving platter so that way it fits. And mine did crack a little bit over here, but it's not going to matter at all because we're going to decorate it. Just be careful at home if you don't want it to crack, you want it to look really pretty. You can slice off the ends if you want to for a prettier presentation, and I'll do that. Use a serrated knife because it's a very soft cake. And now before we decorate the top, we're going to brush it one more time with this simple syrup to get the top nice and soft. I'm just going to make big rosettes on top. You can make rosettes all around the cake if you want to cover the whole thing. And then you could just top it with either lemon slices, or if you have berries, you can put berries on top. So the cake is ready, but at this point, it is a good idea to chill it for at least 1 to 2 hours so all the flavors can come together and marry and the cake can be nice and cool. It tastes best when it's chilled, but we're gonna go ahead and do the taste test because we don't have that much time, but at home, definitely chill it before you serve it. It's a great cake to make ahead of time. You can make most of these components ahead of time, and then the cake takes about 20 minutes to put together from start to finish. I'm drooling. So lemony, so light, so moist and delicious. You guys are gonna love this one. The exact measurements, as always, are on the website www.dimitrasdishes.com. If you want to learn how to make the strawberry version of this, click over here and I'll see you right over there. Yes, As.